It's the moment where silence turns into truth, where every disguise gets stripped from the room. No more hiding behind what you used to pretend. No more versions of self you try to defend. I've seen people get nervous when honesty calls, 'cause truth don't negotiate, it just lets you fall. And the mask that you wore starts cracking apart when reality steps in and exposes the heart. Mask off, now there's nowhere to hide. Every curated illusion falls out of sight, and I've watched identities crumble in real time when the truth finally cuts through the thin little line. 'Cause you can't keep performing when mirrors get clear, and the audience vanishes with nothing to cheer. Now you're left with yourself in the quiet reveal. No applause to distort what you actually feel. And I've seen that moment break confident minds when the roles they were playing just fall out of line. 'Cause the mask was a buffer between pain and truth, the survival technique they abused in youth. But now it dissolves when the pressure gets real, and there's nothing left there but what you can feel. And I've been in that space where I drop my own face, where pretending stopped working in emotional space. And it hurt for a second, but then I could see that the mask was the thing that was distancing me from everything honest I buried inside to look more acceptable, calm in the line. But truth doesn't care if it's ugly or clean, it just shows you exactly what's under the scene. So I learned that exposure is part of release, the destruction of ego that leads into peace. And I write for the ones who were scared of that fall, when they finally stop answering to every call. 'Cause mask off is painful but finally free, the moment you meet what you actually be. And I don't say it lightly, it cuts through the core, but you can't stay disguised and grow anymore. Mask off, nothing to prove, no more characters left to lose. All the truth in the light, no more running from sight. Mask off, finally real. Mask off, nothing to prove, no more characters left to lose. All the truth in the light, no more running from sight. Mask off, finally real. They don't warn you how quiet it gets after truth, when the noise of pretending is stripped from the youth. And I've seen relationships shift in that phase when you stop performing familiar displays. 'Cause some people only knew the version you sold, not the real one beneath all the control. And I've learned that exposure can fracture some ties when the mask is removed and there's nowhere to lie. But I also found peace in that sudden release, where honesty replaces unstable peace. 'Cause keeping the mask is a constant expense of emotional energy, truth in defense. So I tell them the fear is just temporary pain before clarity floods what was once a disguise chain. And I write for the ones who are standing exposed, not sure what remains when the mask finally goes. 'Cause mask off don't destroy you, it reveals what is true, the parts of yourself you were scared to view. And I'd rather be whole in uncomfortable light than split into versions that don't feel right. Mask off, nothing to prove, no more characters left to lose. All the truth in the light, no more running from sight. Mask off, finally real. Mask off, nothing to prove, no more characters left to lose. All the truth in the light, no more running from sight. Mask off, finally real. When the mask hits the floor, you see what you are, not what you used to be. Not what they say, it's what they remove. Truth, that's how reality shifts when the ego improves. They don't fabricate lies, they just edit the frame, leave out key details, but still keep the name. So the world thinks they're honest, but honesty bends when the truth gets rewritten to suit how it ends. I see people remember what never occurred, convincing themselves that their fiction is word, and the mind plays along when convenience is king. So the truth gets demoted to a flexible thing. They say that's just how it happened with certainty bold, but I hear the gaps where the real story folds. Every version they tell shifts slightly each time, like the truth is a playlist they constantly remix and rhyme. And I've learned deception ain't always a crime, sometimes it's survival disguised as a sign. But the danger begins when they start to believe the altered reflection they need to concede. Now their identity's built on unstable ground, where reality bends when nobody's around. And I see contradictions in confident speech, where the facts don't align but the tone still feels rich. So they double down harder when questioned at all, like admitting the truth would be too much a fall. But I don't argue, I just watch and observe how truth gets replaced by emotional curves. And I've done it myself in my weakest states, when truth felt too heavy to properly face. So I get why they do it, I don't even judge, but false truth is a weight that eventually floods. 'Cause reality always collects its own debt, no matter how far you emotionally flex. So I write for the ones who are stuck in between what actually happened and what they have seen, where truth gets distorted just to survive in a world where perception feels more alive. False truth, it bends what you know, half of the facts, but it feels like a whole story shift when the ego takes lead. What is real isn't always what we believe. False truth can rewrite your mind. They defend their version like it's sacred law, even when contradictions start showing the flaws. And I watched entire identities form from selective narration that is perfectly warm. They don't lie to you first, they lie to themselves. They stack up that fiction on emotional shelves till it's harder to tell what is real or is made, cause the memory shifts when the ego gets paid. And I've seen friendships break over who said what, when the truth was just missing the contextual cut, and both sides convinced that they're holding the facts while reality slips through the cracks in the tracks. It's a mental distortion, the narrative power, where truth gets corrupted by emotional hours. And I felt that temptation to rewrite my pain, to make myself look less lost in the frame. But every false truth is a debt you will pay when reality circles back one day. So I try to stay grounded in what I recall, even when the memory feels ready to fall. Cause truth is unstable but still has a core, and bending it slowly just opens the door to a version of life that's no longer aligned with the actual events that are left behind. So I speak for the ones who were caught in that haze, where truth is reconstructed in emotional ways. And I tell them the cost of that quiet rewrite is losing connection to what's actually right. Cause false truth feels safe till it doesn't anymore, when reality knocks and it breaks down the door. So I'd rather be wrong in a painful real way than live in the truth that keeps shifting each day. It bends what you know, half of the facts, but it feels like a friendship story. Once open doors start feeling like chores, it's nobody says always what we believe. Fade like emotional debt that was never repaid. And I felt that shift when I stopped reaching first, when I matched the energy, silence got worse. It taught me that effort can carry your weight. When it's not reciprocated, it slowly decays. But fade out don't hurt like a sudden goodbye. They just quietly teach you to stop asking why. And I've been the one who didn't notice the change, till the distance between us felt normal and strange. Cause fading is subtle, it creeps in your trust like rust on a bond that was once built on us. So I question the moments where effort gets thin, when conversations feel like they've already been. Cause repetition replaces emotional spark, and familiarity starts fading to dark. But I don't blame people for pulling away. Sometimes life gets heavy and changes the way they can show up or not show up at all, but silence still builds its own kind of wall. And I've learned that fading is rarely just one, it's two people drifting when nothing is done. So I write for the ones who feel left in between, not abandoned loudly, just quietly unseen. Cause fading don't scream, it just teaches you space till closeness becomes a remembered place. They fade, no reason, no sound, just distance quietly found. What used to be close feels far, like we forgot who we are. Fade until nothing remains. They still say we're good, but it doesn't align with the energy missing in every reply. And I've seen relationships rot in slow pace, when nobody fights but nobody stays. Cause fading is easier than confrontation talk, so they choose disappearing over honest walk. And I've done it too, when I didn't have strength to explain all the feelings I couldn't present. But avoidance becomes its own quiet crime, when you let connections dissolve over time. So I learned that attention is how bonds survive, not grand gestures but showing up alive. And I speak for the ones who were stuck in that haze, where people don't leave, they just drift away. Cause fading feels safer than truth on the line, but it leaves unanswered questions behind. So I tell them that silence is still a response, even when nobody clearly renounces. And I'd rather face endings that hurt in the chest than confusion that never gives you rest. Cause fading relationships don't give you closure, they just teach you to stop trying to hold her or him or whoever it was, till memory softens what once was. Because distance rewrote what connection once meant, and slowly erased every signal it sent. So I write for the ones who are learning to see that fading is still a form of release. And sometimes the quietest end you will know is the one when nobody says let you go. They fade, no reason, no sound, just distance quietly found. What used to be close feels far, like we forgot who we are. Ego ego don't sleep, it just shifts its disguise. From confidence bright to delusional pride. And I've watched it convince good people they're kings, while they barely holding together their strings. It turns feedback into personal war, like every suggestion is an insult to core. So they double down harder instead of reflect, protecting an image they can't disconnect. And I felt that voice when I thought I was right, ignoring the shadows it hides out of sight. Cause ego don't argue, it just needs to win. Even if winning means losing within, it rewrites intention to protect this crown and blames everyone else when it all falls down. And I've seen relationships fracture and split, cause nobody wanted to question their wit. Just two egos collide and refusing to yield, till silence becomes the only thing healed. But ego is loud in the absence of truth, it fills every gap with distorted proof. So I learned that humility isn't defeat, it's the moment your self-image learns to retreat. And I don't claim freedom from ego at all, I still hear it whisper before I can fall. But awareness is armor that weakens its grip when you notice the moment it starts to slip. So I write for the ones who confuse pride with strength, not knowing it shortens their emotional length. Cause ego will build you, then quietly burn everything real that you've had to earn. And I'd rather be wrong and still be aware than right in a world where nobody cares. Ego talks loud when you're unsure, makes every flaw feel like a war. Pride turns truth into a fight, darkens what used to feel right. Ego can't let you be free. It shows up strongest when you feel exposed, like insecurity dressed and composed. And I've seen it ruin apologies fast, cause ego can't stand when accountability lasts. It rebrands mistakes as somebody else's, so you never confront what the real self tells you. And I've done it too, in defensive defense, protecting my image instead of making sense. But every time ego gets final say, you drift a little further from clarity's way. And relationships suffer in silent collapse from pride that refuses to fill in the gaps. Cause ego would rather be right than repair, even when right leaves nothing but air. So I learned that strength is admitting the crack, not pretending the structure is perfectly intact. And I speak for the ones who are stuck in that loop, where ego feels safer than telling the truth. But safety built on illusion won't hold, it breaks under pressure, it fractures the soul. So I tell them the cost of inflated pride is losing the self that you try to hide. Cause ego can build you a temporary throne, but it never lets you sit there alone. It always demands you keep proving your worth till you forget what you had from birth. So I'd rather be small and honest and real than big in a story I don't even feel. Ego talks loud when you're unsure, makes every flaw feel like a war. Pride turns truth into a fight, darkens what used to feel right. Ego they wear success like it's stitched to the skin, but I see the cracks that they bury within. Every trophy's a bandage for emotional cuts, every flex is a scream that they silence and shut. They don't celebrate life, they just document highs, while they low moments rot in the back of their minds. It's a highlight reel masking internal collapse, where their mental state snaps, but they post it as facts. I see pressure like pressure cookers in disguise, where they boil in silence but smile through the lies. And the money don't heal what the soul never had, it just amplifies emptiness hidden in bags. They compare every win like it's life or a loss, but the cost of that mindset is heavier than thoughts. I've seen people go numb just to look like they made it, then confess in they sleep that they actually hate it. But the world only claps for the polished facade, but the nights when they pray just to feel unscarred. They don't build success, they construct an illusion, a mansion of ego built on self-confusion. And I know that addiction to validation chase, where your worth is decided by digital space. So they fake confidence just to fit in the frame, while their real identity slowly decays. I've been there, I felt that same quiet race, trying to outrun shame with a smile on my face. But success without peace is a beautiful lie, just a trophy that watches the real self die. So I write for the ones who are stuck in the climb, who confuse being seen with being alive. And I tell them the truth that the world doesn't say, that success can still leave you completely betrayed. Fake success, real pressure inside, smiling in public while breaking inside. Climbing so high, but still feeling low, chasing the shine with nowhere to go. Fake success, it don't mean you're free. They celebrate numbers but ignore the mind. Like mental exhaustion is just part of the grind. I seen self-made turn to self-ruined souls, where ambition gets heavy and steals all control. They post every win but erase every loss. Like pain is a weakness you're not allowed to cross. And the higher they rise, the lonelier it gets. Surrounded by praise, but drowning in debt. Not financial, emotional, buried in noise, where they lose their real voice just to sound like a voice. I see friendships fade when success takes the lead, cause some only stay for what they can receive. And the pressure to maintain a perfect life image turns human connection to transactional privilege. I've watched people break while they're smiling on stage, with applause like a cage that they can't disengage. And they don't know how to stop or just be themselves, cause their identity lives on digital shelves. So they keep up appearances day after day, while their inner world slowly fades away. And I speak for the ones who are stuck in that loop, where success feels like truth, but it's actually proof that you traded your peace for a temporary crown that gets heavier every time you look down. But I learned that success without self is a trap, a loud empty victory that never claps back. So I'd rather be real than be publicly praised, than be rich in the world but internally caged. Cause success ain't the flex that they sold you in dreams, if it cost you your soul just to keep up the stream. So I write for the ones who are tired of the show, who are learning that lesson's the only way home.
Fake success in the league, real pressure inside, smiling in public while breaking.
They don't say I love you, they say this will do. Like commitment is something you settle into, not built from the fire of emotional depth, but from fear of the silence that comes with regret. So they stay out of habit, not genuine flame, just two broken patterns pretending the same. And I've watched that connection decay in slow time, like two parallel lives that don't fully align. They don't talk about dreams, they talk about logistics. Who's easier to reach when existence is distant, and the spark gets replaced with convenience and ease. Like affection is something you take when you please. It's not love, it's arrangement disguised as survival, where presence is cheaper than truth or revival. And I've seen people cling just to not be alone, even when what they're in doesn't feel like home. They call it devotion, but fear is the glue, holding two broken pieces that never feel true. And I've been inside that exact kind of space, where you confuse familiarity with grace. But comfort can lie when it keeps you contained in the cycle of needing but never unchained. So I question the bonds that are built on just fine, when fine is a mask for two hearts out of line. Cause convenience don't care if you grow or you stall, it just keeps you from facing the weight of it all. And I've learned that the hardest truth you can face is leaving what's easy but empty of grace. So I write for the ones who are stuck in between, in relationships held by routine, not dream where love isn't chosen, it's simply around. Like a noise you got used to that drowns out the sound. Lone love, it never feels whole, two hearts staying just to not let go. Not from passion, just fear of the end, calling it love but it won't transcend. Lone love, never fully alive. They don't build together, they just coexist, like emotional tennis that barely persist. And the longer they stay, the more numb it becomes, till affection feels muted like dulling of drums. I've seen dinners in silence where nothing is said, but the room feels crowded with words in their head. Cause they both understand but refuse to release what they know isn't love but a fragile piece. And I've watched that decay turn affection to habit, where leaving feels harder than learning to have it. So they justify staying with reasons half true, like it's not that bad, it's enough to get through. But not being bad doesn't mean it is right, just means it survives in the dimmest of light. And I felt that pull to confuse, not alone with the warmth of a bond that was never my own. But convenience will trap you in cycles to stay, where you slowly forget what you need to escape. And I speak for the ones who are tagging and aware that they're holding a bond that was never repaired. Cause love is a location, a shared circumstance, it's two souls aligned in a mutual stance. But lone love is fragile, it bends and it breaks under weight of the truth that the silence makes. So I tell them the cost of that comfortable lie is the slow death of feeling alive inside. And I'd rather be lonely and fully aware than together in something that isn't repair. Lone love, it never feels whole, two hearts staying just to not let go. Not from passion, just fear of the end, calling it love but it won't transcend. Lone love fading away, it's a world full of actors who forgot they were cast, living future illusions while ignoring the past. If it's only convenience, it's bound to decay.
Yeah.
They build personalities out of public approval, like identity starts when the crowd gives renewal. So they shift with the wind or whatever is praised, till their real self gets lost in adaptable ways. I've seen people become what the room wants to see, even if it destroys who they used to be. And the mask starts as armor, then turns into skin, so they don't remember where the real self begins. Every laugh is a signal, every nod is a role, every compliment feeds an unstable control. And I felt that pull to perform for respect, to trade authenticity for social effect. But the cost of that trade is heavier than gold. It slowly erases the stories you hold, cause when you're always performing, you forget how to be. Not the version they like, but the version that's free. And I watched entire lives get built on that stage, where existence depends on approval and gaze. So they never step off, they just switch costumes fast, from one version of self to another that lasts. But none of it's real, it's just adaptive disguise, a survival mechanism dressed up as life. And I don't judge it, I understand the design. A world that rewards what looks well aligned, but inside that alignment, something gets lost. A quiet self buried under social cost. And I speak for the ones who feel split in two, between who they are and who they must do. Cause the mask isn't evil, it's just how they cope with a world that confuses attention with hope. But I've learned that the silence beneath all the noise is where you recover your original voice. So I write for the ones who are tired of the play, who feel most themselves when the crowd goes away. Masked up but they're falling apart, smiling through cracks in the fractured heart, playing a role just to stay in the light, lost in the need to be seen. Alright, past life, never fully their own. They fear being real more than being exposed, so they hide in identities carefully posed. And I've watched friendships dissolve over time when the mask couldn't match up to the line. Cause people don't meet you, they meet your display, and leave when the performance drifts away. It's a fragile connection built on perception, not rooted in truth but selective reception. So when the mask slips even slightly off center, the world treats your soul like it's no longer tender. And I've been in that space where I split in my head between who I perform and the words I said. But the truth has a weight that the mask can't sustain. It leaks through the cracks like emotional rain. So I started to notice the cost of pretending, the endless rehearsal with no real ending. And I saw that the mask wasn't protecting at all, it was just delaying a much bigger fall. Cause you can't keep performing your whole existence without losing touch with internal resistance. So I stepped back slowly from curated pride, from the version of self that I built to survive. And I found in the silence beneath all the noise, there's a raw human voice that you don't need to avoid. So I speak for the ones who are stuck in disguise, who are tired of living through borrowed eyes. Cause the mask might protect you from judgment and pain, but it also removes you from feeling your name. And I'd rather be seen in my broken state than hidden behind something I constantly fake. Masked up with the falling apart, smiling through cracks in the fractured heart, playing a role just to stay in the light, lost in the need to be seen. Alright, silence on smiles on camera. Inside it's violence, you can't train authenticity, it don't go viral. So they recycle lies just to stay in survival. Everybody up, but nobody stable. Dinner table stories got holes in the fable. They talk real life, but they Photoshop pain. Delete every scar just to sharpen the name. I see confidence stitched from borrowed belief, like ego on lease with no root underneath. And I don't compete in that curated illusion, I dissect the confusion behind their delusion. Every post is a pose, every win is a mask, every loss gets buried so nobody asks, are you okay? Nah, that question's too real, so they fake another smile just to seal the deal. I've seen kings turn to actors for validation, lose their own voice chasing imitation. And the higher they climb, the less they feel, till success is just pain with a better appeal. But I'm built in the cracks where the truth leaks through, where the fake can't breathe and the real breaks through. One shot to expose what they never confess, that the crown they wear is just emotional stress. So I speak in the language they try to avoid, where the noise of pretending gets slowly destroyed. And I don't need a stage just to say what I am, I'd rather be nothing than a counterfeit man. One shot to be real, no disguise, no script, no filter, reflection when the moment hits. If truth is a risk, then I'm taking it all. Let the mask fall down when the silence calls. One shot, then the fake life slips. They build their identity out out of borrowed opinions, like self-worth's a business run by public decisions. Every compliment's currency, every view is survival, so they dance for attention just to stay in revival. I've seen friends turn strangers when the likes don't align, seen loyalty vanish in the digital line. They don't live, they perform in the loop for approval, where rejection feels lethal when ego is crucial. But I learned early that applause is a trap. It rewrites your soul while it claps in your lap. Now I watch them all twist just to fit in the frame, lose their own reflection just to chase a name. And I speak for the ones who feel out of place, who wear I'm fine like a mask on their face, because pretending is loud but the truth is quiet, and honesty starves in a world that denies it. So I sharpen my voice like a blade through the fiction, cutting through narratives built on addiction to being whatever they praise, even if it means losing themselves in the haze. But I'd rather be flawed than a polished mistake, than the hollow success that I had to fake. So I stand in the center of the manufactured storm, where real is rebellion and truth is a war. And I don't need followers, I need release from a culture that profits off inner peace. So I speak for the ones who are done with the show, who are tired of pretending they already know. One shot to be real, no disguise, no script, no filter, reflection when the moment hits. If truth is a risk, then I'm taking it all. Let the mask fall down when the silence calls. One shot, then the fake life slips. And if I fall, at least it's me who fell, not a version I built just to sell. One shot. It's the price of evolving, they never explain how growth can still carry emotional pain. They say change is growth, but don't warn you what's lost. The people who knew you before the new cost. Cause when you start leveling, shifting your state, some connections don't follow, they hesitate. And I felt that silence when people fall back, not cause you did wrong, but you're off their track. Now your old conversations don't land like before, cause your mindset is different than who you were for. And I've watched admiration turn subtly cold when your evolution breaks stories they told, cause they liked you better when you stayed the same. Predictable version niggas can still name, but change makes you unfamiliar. Even the friends who knew every chapter your past life sends. And I've learned that growth isn't always embraced. Sometimes it creates a new kind of space, where you stand in the middle of who you were then and who you are now and who comes again. And that tension can fracture your sense of your own, like you're not fully here or completely alone. But I also saw power in shedding no skin, even if it meant letting some comfort in. Cause staying the same just to keep people close can slowly erase what matters the most. So I learned that change is both blessing and cut, a door closing quietly while others erupt. And I write for the ones who are scared of that shift, who feel like their growth is a dangerous gift. Cause change doesn't ask if you're ready or not, it just pulls you forward from everything sought. Change, it rewrites your name, nothing stays quite the same. People drift out of you when you become something new. Change always costs something. Yeah. They don't warn you how lonely progress can feel when your old world fades while your new one is real. And I've stood in that gap where identity breaks between who I was and the choices I make. Cause change isn't clean, it's messy and loud. It separates you from familiar crowds, but it also reveals who was really aligned, not just present, but tied to your climb. And I've learned that not everyone grows at the same pace, so you lose certain bonds in the shift of your place. But I don't call it loss, I call it release from versions of life that no longer bring peace. Still it hurts in the silence that follows the shift, when the people you knew start to drift and slip. But I tell myself growth was never meant smooth. It demands that you leave what you used to approve. So I write for the ones who are stuck in that line between moving forward and leaving behind. Cause change is a mirror that doesn't lie soft. It shows what you gained and what you lost. And I'd rather evolve through uncomfortable days than stay in one version forever in place. Change, rewrite your name, nothing stays quite the same. People drift out of you when you become something new. Change always costs something. They treat average like it's some kind of curse, like being unseen is the worst of the worst. So they fabricate highs just to dodge the in-between where life isn't viral, just quietly seen. And I've watched that pressure distort how they think, turning peace into something that scared to link. Cause if you ain't exceptional, what are you then? So they rewrite their worth just to fit in a trend. But I've lived in that space where nothing feels loud, no applause, no hate, just blend in the crowd. And it's not what they selling, those dream chasing lines where success is a mountain you're forced to climb blind. Most of life is repetition, routine and breath, not cinematic moments or dramatic depth. But they fear that reality, call it a loss, like normal is failure with no visible gloss. So they stretch out their image to avoid being plain, like simplicity somehow means personal shame. But I've learned that the truth is uncomfortable peace, where you stop trying to prove you deserve to exist. And I've seen more collapse from unrealistic pride than from just being average and staying alive. Cause the pressure to stand out will break your core if your value depends on applause keeping score. So I question the narrative they push as a rule, that ordinary equals invisible fool, when really it's just life in its natural form. Before ego convinces you, you must transform. And I don't mock it, I understand why they run from a world that feels dull when it's not overdone. But I'd rather be grounded in truth that is plain than live in the highlight that's masking the pain. So I write for the ones who feel lost in the gray, who think they are nothing for just being that way. Average, they feel what it means. Not every life is built for the screens. No spotlight doesn't mean you're less, just real life without the excess. Average, still fully alive. They confuse being seen with being alive, so they chase validation just to survive. But the moment the crowd stops cheering their name, they feel like existence has shifted to shame. And I've watched that illusion eat people whole, when identity's tied to a role they control. Cause what happens when nobody's watching the show? Do you vanish or finally start to know that you don't need extremes just to justify breath? That quieted existence is not equal death, but the world keeps promoting exaggerated dreams when normal is framed as collapse, and that seems. So people escape from the middle of life when nothing is broken but nothing feels bright. And I've been in that middle, I've stood in that zone where you're not celebrated but you're not alone. And it taught me more than the eyes ever did, more than any applause that I ever lived in. Cause average strips ego down to its base, where you finally confront your unfiltered face. No filters, no edits, no curated pride, just a human existence you can't override. And I speak for the ones who are stuck in that space, thinking they're failing by just keeping pace. But life isn't always a race to be won, sometimes it's just breathing till day is done. So I tell them the truth that most never say, that average is life in its natural way. And the freedom they search for in fame and acclaim was always inside their ordinary name. So I'd rather be average and actually real than exceptional in a way I don't feel. Average, they feel what it means. Not every life is built for the screen. No spotlight, they call it family, but it's fractured. Just real life, a collection of wounds nobody confessed, where silence is louder than words ever said. And old misunderstandings still live in your head. I watched arguments echo for years in a room, long after the people have left the same tomb. Cause nobody wants to be first to concede, so pride becomes poison that nobody sees. And I felt that weight in my own bloodline ties, where love gets distorted through ego and lies. They remember you false but forget what you gave, till appreciation gets lost in the grave. And the roles that you play get assigned from the past, so you're stuck in a version that never can last. I've seen siblings turn strangers with time and with space, still sharing the same name but not the same place. And parents projecting what they never achieved on children who silently struggle to breathe. It's love mixed with pressure, affection with strain, a cycle of care that is tangled with pain. And I don't say this to disrespect what is real, cause family can heal when both sides reveal. But too often the truth gets swallowed in pride, and nobody's willing to step outside, so they stay in the loop of emotional debt, where forgiveness is spoken but never reset. And I've been both victim and part of the flame, in moments where silence was easier than name. But distance don't fix what communication avoids, it just amplifies all the emotional noise. So I write for the ones who are caught in between the love and the damage that runs through the gene. Cause family is powerful, messy and deep, but it's only as real as the truth you keep. Family, love, and the pain, same blood but not the same frame, holding on through pride and blame, calling it home but it feels the same. Family can break or heal. They don't talk it out, they just let it sit, till resentment grows thick in the space they split. And holidays feel like a scripted routine where emotions are present but never seen. I've watched laughter cover what's left unsaid, while forgiveness gets postponed inside their head, cause admitting the hurt means opening doors to conflicts they've been avoiding for years before. And I felt that tension in quiet exchanges where love is still there but heavily caged in. But family don't mean absence of war, it means choosing to stay even when you're unsure. Still, that doesn't excuse the damage it makes when nobody learns from repeated mistakes. So I speak for the ones who are stuck in that space where blood doesn't guarantee emotional grace, cause connection without truth slowly decays like a house that collapses in hidden ways. And I've learned that healing begins with a voice, not silence disguised as a lack of choice. So I'd rather confront what is broken and real than pretend that the wounds don't exist or feel. Cause family can hurt you in ways no one sees, but it can also become what finally frees if pride is replaced with accountability and silence is traded for vulnerability. So I tell them the truth that most never say, that love alone isn't enough to stay. Family, love, and the pain, same blood but not the same frame, holding on to pride and blame, calling it home but it feels the same. Storms that refuse to cease, I see deep like curtains over broken rooms where hope sits quiet in emotional tombs. Every I'm good is a strategic lie, a rehearsed little script so they don't have to cry. They laugh at the surface but collapse underneath like pain in a tux trying to hide what it breathes. I've watched people shine while they glimmering inside like candles still burning but refusing to rise. And the world just claps at the version they show, never asking what darkness they silently know. They post up happiness like it's proof they're alive, but survival ain't living, it's just staying in stride. And I've seen that divide in the flick of a smile where the truth gets buried every digital mile. They don't break in public, they fracture in private, then rebuild their face like emotional pirates, stealing back moments they never could say, turning pain into silence they swallow each day. And I relate to the weight that they never display, to the nights when your voice just gets lost in decay. So they grin through the damage like armor for pride, while their real self is buried somewhere deep inside. And I don't judge the mask, I just understand why a cracked soul survives by pretending it's fine. But I write what they feel when the lights aren't around, when the smile disappears and the truth makes a sound like help me said quietly through clenched up teeth. A war in the heart with no place for relief. So I speak for the ones who keep pain out of you with a smile so convincing it fools even you. They smile, but it's breaking inside, hiding the tears that they try to deny, laughing so loud just to cover the fall while their silence is screaming through it all. Hidden smiles never mean they're alright. I've seen family dinners where nobody talks, just emotional distance and polite little shocks where how was your day is a ritual phrase, not a question that reaches the maze. Their cage, they smile at each other but don't really connect, like love got replaced by emotional neglect. And the strongest performers are hurting the most, but they host that disguise like a permanent ghost. I watch friendships decay behind laughter and tricks where the joy on the surface is weaker than it seems. In the moment the room gets quiet and still you can feel all the cracks that the smiles couldn't heal. They don't want attention, they wanna be known, but vulnerability feels like stepping on stone. So they fake another grin just to stay in control while their real self is trapped in the tightening hold. And I get it, I worn that same painted disguise, acting fine while my world was collapsing inside. But the truth always leaks through the corners of lips and the pauses between every carefully fixed script. So I stopped believing that smiles equal peace. Now I read what's beneath every surface I see, because happiness forced is the loudest of pain, just a quiet breakdown in emotional chains. And I speak for the ones who are tired of pretending, who are done with the mask that they keep recommencing. There's a war in their grin that the world doesn't hear, a performance of joy built on invisible fear. So I write for the nights when they swallow their truth, for the smiles that are stitched from emotional bruise. Because behind every smile that the world calls bright, there's a shadow that fights just to stay out of sight. They smile, but it's breaking inside, hiding the tears that they try to deny, laughing so loud just to cover the fall while their silence is screaming through it all. Hidden smiles never mean they're alright. Don't trust every smile you see, some are just scars.
pretending to breathe.
The version of you can't unwind. Regret don't shout, it just sits in your chest like unfinished sentences you never addressed. And I felt it creeping when silence gets loud, when memories rise from the depth of a crowd. Cause the mind replays what you wish you would change. Every fork in the road you emotionally maimed. And I watch people stuck in the loop they can't leave, reliving the moments they chose to believe that they'd figure it out. Or it wasn't the time till hindsight arrives and rewrites the climb. But regret is selective, it edits the truth. It ignores what you learned, just highlights the proof of where you fell short, or stayed too long, or said the wrong words when you knew they were wrong. And I've been there myself, replaying old lines, wishing I could undo emotional signs. But you can't go back, only forward with weight, carrying echoes of earlier fate. So I learned that regret is a teacher in pain, but also a prison that locks up your game. Cause if you live too long in what you would change, you forget how to move through the present range. And I write for the ones who revisit their past, trying to fix what was never meant to last. Cause regret isn't loud, it's patient and slow. It grows in the places you don't let go. So I tell them the truth that I've had to accept. You can't rewrite moments you mentally kept. You can only grow from the lessons they bring, and stop letting memory control everything. Regret, it stays in your mind, playing the past on rewind. Words you can't take back, moments that left a crack. Regret, 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 regret never fully leave. They say, move on, but it's never that clean when the past keeps replaying in emotional scenes. And I've seen strong minds get caught in that loop where forgiveness is hard and the truth feels loose. Cause regret don't care if you've grown or evolved, it holds on to versions you thought you dissolved. And I've learned that some things can't be undone, no matter how far you run, how far you become. But I also found peace in accepting the burn, that not every mistake is meant to return. Some are just markers of where you once stood, in the version of life where you did what you could. So I write for the ones who still carry that weight of choices that shifted their personal fate. Cause regret can consume if you let it expand till you're trapped in the past you no longer understand. So I tell them to learn but don't live and rewind. Cause growth only happens when you leave behind the versions of self that you can't repair, and choose to exist in the now that is there. And I'd rather be flawed with lessons I've learned than perfect in memories that still burn. Regret, it stays in your mind, playing the past on rewind. Words say they're working, but it looks like it back. Busy enough just to stay in the way, not feeling outright, just endlessly stuck like motion without meaning. Dressed up as luck and I've been there, caught in that invisible. You move every day but don't really climb, where ambition turns into repetitive noise and potential gets buried under temporary choice. They confuse being active with actually growing, but directionless effort is just water still flowing in circles, not forward, just looping the same till identity blends with a comfortable chain. And I see how fear can disguise itself well as not the right time, or I don't know when I fell, but waiting becomes just another excuse for avoiding the risk of breaking loose. So they stay in that space where nothing gets done, but they talk like they're close to the rising sun. And I've watched opportunities quietly die, not from failure but fear dressed as try. Cause stuff doesn't scream, it just slowly decays in routines that repeat in predictable ways. And I don't mock it, I understand the weight of being aware, but still sealed by fate. But awareness without movement becomes its own cage, a loop of reflection that never turns page. So I write for the ones who feel trapped in their skin, knowing where they should be but not where they've been. Cause being stuck isn't loud, it's a quiet defeat, where progress feels distant but comfort feels sweet. Stuck in the same old place, running but not in the race. Time moves but they don't grow, trapped in the loop they already know. Stuck, still standing, still. Yeah, they build habits that mimic real motion and grind, but never confront what's been left behind. And I've seen potential dissolve in routine, where dreams get reduced to a fading machine. Cause repetition can feel like control, when really it's fear that's steering the soul. And I've had those days where I looked at my path and realized I was avoiding the mass of change, requiring discomfort and risk, not just another checklist fix. But they cling to familiarity's grip, like it's safer than stepping off the ship, even when the ship is already still. drifting nowhere but claiming it will. And I speak for the ones who feel mentally split between wanting to move and staying in it. Cause stuck isn't failure, it's unresolved fear that disguises itself as not this year. But the longer you stay in that comfortable zone, the harder it gets to break on your own. So I tell them the truth that they don't wanna face. That comfort can quietly steal your pace, and every delay that feels harmless and small is still a decision that builds up the wall. So I'd rather be lost while I'm moving ahead than stuck in the same place pretending instead.
Stuck in the same old place, running but not in the race.
They don't ask how you feel,
but they don't
got
grow.
like your word is your access, your hustle, your spot.
know.
And I've watched relationships quietly flip. When the currency changes, they loosen their grip, cause they never attach to the person inside. Just the doors that you open, the space you provide. So when you stop producing, they slowly retreat, like your silence makes value obsolete. And I've been in circles where loyalty's thin, where connection is only as strong as the wind. They'll laugh at your jokes but ignore your pain, cause your struggle don't add to their personal gain. And I've learned that convenience can mimic respect to the moment you stop and they start to neglect. It's a transaction disguised as a friend with emotional terms that don't really extend. So I question the bonds that dissolve so fast when the benefit curve doesn't perfectly last. Cause real connection survives the decline, not just when you're useful or align with the shine. And I felt that shift when I changed my pace, when I stopped being useful in the defined space. Then suddenly silence replaced all the calls, like I vanished completely from invisible walls. But it taught me a truth that I couldn't ignore, that some people are present but never are more than the function you serve in their private design. Not the human behind it, not the soul in your line. So I write for the ones who are learning to see who's around them for presence or for utility. Cause being used isn't always so loud, it hides in the smiles of a conditional crowd.
Users, they stay for the gain, not for your joy, not for your pain. When you stop giving, they fade. That's the price of the role you play. Users
Don't really stay.
Users
They don't call it using, they call it support. But support disappears when you change a report. And I've seen friendships expire overnight when the benefit balance no longer feels right. Cause reciprocity isn't their goal, it's extraction disguised as a role. So they take what they need and they never return till your presence stops being something they earn. And I've been both sides in different degrees, where I didn't notice what others might need. But awareness is heavy when truth starts to land, that some connections were never unplanned. They were built on convenience, not mutual trust. The fragile arrangement mistaken for us. So I started to question every connection I knew. Who stays when I'm empty? Who stays when I'm through? And the answer was clearer than I wanted to see. Not everyone with you is truly with thee. Some are just present while benefits flow, then disappear quickly when resources go. So I tell them the truth that most won't admit, that usage feels moral to get not part of it. And I'd rather be alone than selectively kept for what I can offer, not who I've wept. Cause users don't hate you, they just don't care beyond what you give when they need you there. So I write for the ones who are learning to break from bonds that exist only for taking sake. And I tell them that value is not what you give, but who stays when there's nothing left to live.
Users, they stay for the gain, not for your joy, not for your pain. When you stop giving, they fade. That's the price of the role you play. Users don't really stay. Users if they leave when you're low, let them go. Real ones don't need a reason to show.
Pain, they don't trust attention, they trust what they see. Like your worth is defined by what's externally free. So you speak all your plans and they treat it as talk, till your actions create what your silence can walk. And I've been in that space where nobody believes, till results start appearing like pulling up sleeves. Cause proof is the language the world understands, not your vision, your dreams, or your detailed plans. And I watch people switch when success starts to show, like they knew you all along but didn't let it go. But before the results, you're invisible air, just potential they question but never declare. So I learned that consistency speaks over noise, that proof doesn't argue, it simply deploys. Every action repeated becomes evidence clear, that shuts down the doubt and dissolves all the fear. But I also saw pressure that proof can create when your value gets tied to a visible state. Cause now every achievement becomes expectation, and silence feels like personal degradation. So I balance the its own mental disease. If your identity lives in external applause, you'll forget that you started for internal cause. And I felt that tension between rest and display, where you fear that the world will forget you one day. But real proof isn't constant performance or grind, it's alignment between what you do and your mind. So I write for the ones who are stuck in that need to prove their existence through action and deed. Cause proof has its power, but also its chain, when you need it to validate all that remains.
They wait for the sign before they believe you're aligned. Talk don't carry the same weight as results that decide your fate. Proof speaks louder than words. They don't question the effort, they question the show. Cause unseen dedication is hard to know. And I've watched confidence crumble in doubt when nobody validates what you're about. But proof eventually shifts every room, turns skepticism into quiet bloom. Yet I learned that chasing approval can twist your original purpose into something you miss. Cause now you're performing to justify worth instead of just building from internal birth. The proof becomes double-edged sword in disguise. It can validate you or blur your eyes. And I've had to step back from needing that check to feel like I matter or gain respect. Cause proof without purpose becomes empty gain, just numbers and results that don't heal the pain. So I write for the ones who are stuck in between, believing in self but still not seen. Cause proof takes its time and it never lies, but it also can't fix internal disguise. So I tell them to build what they know is true, not just what the world demands from you. Cause eventually proof will arrive at your door, but you can't let it define you anymore. And I'd rather be steady without validation than chasing approval as justification. Proof, they wait for the sign before they believe you're aligned. Talk don't carry the same weight as results that decide your fate. Proof speaks louder than words. Let results come when they must.
They romanticize hustle like it's on pure gold, but don't see the exhaustion it silently holds. Every step forward got weight on your back. Every keep going hides what you lack. And I've lived in that space where rest feels like loss, but stopping too long means you question the cost. So you push through fatigue like it's part of the game, till your body forgets what it feels like to tame. And I watch people burn while they chase a dream, confusing self-destruction with building esteem. Cause hustle don't care if you're falling apart, it just feeds on ambition and calls it hard. But there's truth in the grind and there's danger as well, when your identity lives in the climbing the spell. Cause if you don't win, you feel less than whole, like your value depends on a measurable goal. And I've been in that loop where I couldn't escape, where rest felt like failure, not part of the shape. But exhaustion is honest, it doesn't pretend, it shows you the limit you try to transcend. So I learned that real hustle includes knowing when to pause, to reset, to rebuild again. But the world only praises the constant pursuit, not the wisdom it takes to pause and reboot. So I write for the ones who are stuck in that drive, where slowing down feels like losing your stride. Cause hustle without balance will slowly consume everything real that you try to assume. And I'd rather move steady than break in the race, than win something hollow with no rest in place.
Hustle, it pushes you far,
but can't always tell you who you are.
grind until nothing remains.
Trading peace for invisible change.
Hustle
can break you inside. Yeah. They call it success when you never stop, but don't see the pressure that sits at the top. And I've watched careers built on sleepless nights, where making it steals all your inner rights. Cause hustle gets toxic when identity blends with how many hours and effort you spend. So you measure your worth in productivity lines, while your mental health slowly declines. And I've had to question my own definition of chasing the goal versus self-demolition. Cause there's power in work, but there's danger too, when rest feels like something you're not allowed to do. So I started to learn that real discipline means knowing when to step out of extreme routines. But that lesson is harder than grinding itself, when your ego ties value to constant wealth. So I write for the ones who are trapped in the chase, who feel like they're losing if they don't keep pace. Cause hustle can build you or bury you deep, depending on what promises you choose to keep. And I tell them that rest is not failure or fall, it's part of the climb that supports it all. Cause even machines need a moment to cool, and humans aren't built to be endless fuel. So I'd rather progress with my sanity whole than hustle my way into losing my soul.
Hustle, it pushes you
far, but can't always tell you who you are. Grinding till nothing remains, trading peace for invisible change. Hustle, hustle can break you inside. Flaws erased, to deception looks natural, sitting on their face. I see stories get shaped just to fit in the light, while the shadow behind them gets hidden from sight. It's not what they say, it's what they adjust, that turns honest intention to curated trust. They don't invent fiction, they optimize truth, remove all the edges that don't look smooth, so reality bends just enough to align with the version of self they prefer to define. And I watch that process distort what is real, like memory shifts based on how they feel. They'll swear on a moment that never occurred, convincing themselves it was perfectly heard. Cause the mind likes comfort more than precision, so it edits the past with emotional revision. And I don't even judge it, I understand why people repackage pain just to get by. But the danger begins when they stop seeing the change, when altered perception becomes just their range. Now the truth isn't fixed, it's flexible air that reshapes itself based on who's standing there. I've seen reputations rebuilt from denial, where contradiction gets buried in style, and they double down harder when questioned at all, like admitting the truth will collapse their whole wall. But I've learned that lies don't always start with intent. Sometimes it's just ego trying to prevent the discomfort of saying I might be wrong, so that we write the chorus but keep singing the song. And I've done it myself in moments of fear, where honesty felt too heavy to hear. But every adjusted truth carries a cost, a slow disconnect from what's really lost. So I speak for the ones who are caught in that bend, where truth and perception don't properly blend. Cause fitted lies feel safe in the short-term view, but they always collapse when realities do. Fitted lies, they look so real, shaped like truth but not how you feel. Smooth on the surface, fractured inside, changing the past just to survive. Fitted lies can't hold for long. They don't notice the shift in their inner design till contradictions start drawing a line. And I've seen friendships dissolve over facts when both sides were living in separate tracks. Cause each one is certain they're holding the truth, but truth got diluted in personal proof. So the argument circles with nowhere to land, just two versions of life they both understand. And I felt that space where perception divides, where what you believe starts splitting inside. But if you never reflect on the shape that you bend, you call every lie just a means to an end. And I've learned that honesty isn't just speech, it's a line between what you do and your reach. So I stopped trying to edit my own recall, even when truth didn't flatter at all. Cause fitted lies might protect your pride, but they quietly fracture what's built inside. And I write for the ones who were stuck in that haze, where memory shifts in adaptive ways, who don't even know that the truth has been tuned by emotion and ego, quietly co-piloted rooms. But real peace comes when you stop rearranging what actually happened for comfort's changing. So I tell them the cost of that soft distortion is losing connection to your real proportion. Cause truth can be ugly, unfiltered and plain, but at least it remains when illusions decay. So I'd rather be wrong in a brutally real way than live in the truth that keeps shifting each day. Fitted lies, they look so real, shaped like truth but not how you feel. Smooth on the surface, fractured inside, changing the past just to survive. Fitted lies can't hold for long. Boom, 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 boom. Truth don't flex, it stands or it falls. Every lie eventually calls. And fitted lies always lose it all.